well known. Charles and I, meaning Charlie Bennett and Evelyn, thought we would like to have a church, as there was no active church in town, and we decided to get the community church going. Every Sunday we had a picnic at someone's home, and one of the ministers would conduct the service. We loved to go up to the hills of home, which is off of 93, and we look up there and there's a small cottage, I think that was rebuilt. Aunt Mary's place, and we had beautiful views up there. We also met at our camp on the lake, meaning Timber Lake, and the Harrises entertained as well as others. And I remember ice cream socials on our porch. Forrest Hutchings and Alpha Cole welcomed us also. We had a good community group act. Each service we took up a collection for the purpose of refurbishing the old Methodist house. You know, this building was moved from the Goshen area, which is down at the end of Glover School Road and then off in the woods. Taken down, probably timbered out by timber, numbered, and then reassembled. The Methodist Church had not used this building since 1927. Since then, the local children had been brought up with no church in town. We found the church belonged to the Methodist Conference. However, we began using the church as it was not locked. Then the Methodists jumped in. We had collected a goodly sum of money by this time for the refurbishing of the church. And suddenly a Methodist minister appeared at the service, and he took the collection back with him. Oh! Then we decided to go back to having services in people's homes. We did. The Methodists showed up there too. We had a delegation go down to Bridgeton and explained that we were not affiliated with the Methodist Church or Conference, and we were a private group and felt that the Methodists had no hold on it. At the same time, we contacted the Methodist Conference, and they were very helpful and fair. They gave us a quitclaim deed to a new organization which we formed, the Sweden Community Church. They agreed that as long as the building was used as a church, it was fine with them. It was a wonderful revival in the community, and we had enough local folks going to have a regular service during the entire summer. Many summer visitors attended. Reverend Gibbons and Pearson Harris conducted the service, giving their time and effort. Marjorie Luke Gibbons and Ella Harris contributed significantly. Ella played the piano or the organ at services. We deplore the fact that there was no Sunday school, so plans were made ahead to establish one. We regretted not having any Sunday school and thought we would start one. However, it appeared transportation problems would be too great. So we held Sunday school the last period of the regular school day of the week. We had to get a permit because of the separation of church and state doctrine from the school authorities and written permission from the parent of every pupil. Sunday school met in the church. School closed an hour early in the afternoon, and the school bus took the children home at the end of the regular time. Now, I remember growing up in White Plains, New York, and we had something called release time, when children got out of school early and then went to a church for Christian education. This system went on for a number of years. Ruth Bennett and Evelyn conducted the Sunday school. Later, Otto Chase, whose poem I read the other day, became the teacher. Ruth Bennett was very good. She had many books, and the Harrises and Gibbons from their churches sent up materials. Mother was a director of Christian education. We did not have a Sunday school curriculum. When the Hamases, Johnsons, and Olsons came to summer in Sweden at Timberledge, they would send materials. From the beginning, Dr. Bull from Waterford and the Lovell ministers served the church. Mr. Monroe, Don Goodwin, and once or twice, George Harvey from Freiburg preached at evening services. Chard, who had summered at Timberledge and later became the minister for the Freiburg Church, became very active with our group. We raised money through projects such as chicken barbecue, food sales, and the like. Although we gave checks to ministers, $15 per service, they always returned their stipend to the church. The church received a small sum from an endowment from a former resident of Sweden. The principal being held by the Methodist Conference, still do, in fact. This was written in 76. It may have been a Hamlin. Early on, the Congregational Conference sent about $300 a year to us to help us get started. The Methodist Conference did not support us financially. They turned the church over to us. Ray Gibbons arranged the congregational gift. None of us were familiar with church policy, so Ray Gibbons and Pearson Harris guided us. They set up our charter. We organized as a community church under the auspices of the Congregational Conference and affiliated with the Northern Methodist Conference. Each year, we sent per capita contributions to the Congregational and Methodist conferences. Naturally, we were closer to congregational philosophy because of Ray and Pearson. For our congregational ministers, we sent delegates only to the Congregational Conference and Union. Our first hymnals were a gift from Ruth Bennett and the Harrises. Later, the new hymnals were provided by the Richards family. And then, the current Methodist hymnal was provided for us by Earl Bell, who was a Methodist minister and was serving as an interim pastor. The big pipe organ given us by a church somewhere near Mexico, Maine. Ed Finley knew someone in that town and found out they were disposing of their organ. Ed did the carpentry work when the organ was installed. Aunt Mary Chandler played the organ the first several years. A lot of women played the organ. Ruth Bennett, Henny Richards, Ruth Olson, Mary Wilson, as well as Ella Pearson. Ella Pearson, I think she means Ella Harris. George Strong was a deacon and a great worker, as was Charlie Bennett and Roger Merrill. George Strong acted as lay preacher on several occasions. The Strongs had the house that the Sunwalls have. Charlie and Phil used to man the fires for the chicken barbecue. I remember the great big slabs of pit things that they had. We borrowed the grill equipment from Central Maine Power. They used to lend it out to organizations for money-raising functions. Imagine Central Maine Power doing something. The days have changed. We were almost the first church to use the equipment. Before that, only Central Maine Power used it, and then they lent it out to many other churches in the area. Because many churches put on chicken barbecue suppers. Folks lost interest and we had to change tactics. I remember the time we were all set up and operating when a terrific thunderstruck shower came, and Phil and Charlie had 50 or more cooked chickens on the rack. Down came the tornado. Folks left, and we were left with 200 cooked and uncooked chickens.
Oh my goodness.
Phil and Charlie packed up the things in the pouring rain, soaked to the skin. We lost money that event. It was a tricky operation at best, and you had to set up early and get the fires going properly and cook chickens for early arrivals. We only lost out once. Once we became fully organized as a congregation, we developed many other fundraising projects until finally we raised enough funds to hire a summer minister, John Crow. And John Crow, a student minister at the time, they stayed at timber ledge in the boathouse, as I remember. A second student, David Powers, and he bunked in the old center schoolhouse, which was vacant at the time. You know, there were residents besides the mice and the bats. David, the
I
next
always
year-
wondered if I could take a nap over there.
You're welcome to. David, the next year, went as a delegate to the conference in Rome. In those 2 years, other church members who had accommodations housed the student ministry. In 1955, we became self-sustaining. We had enough people coming to church and enough donations to tell the congregational conference we did not need their contribution. That was a proud time for us. And incidentally, the communion service came from the original church. It was a sad day when later it was stolen from the church and we never got it back again. We built petitions at the rear of the church to have a Sunday school during services. Evelyn was the first teacher, then Otto Chase took over. At some time, the Methodist Conference gave us a quitclaim deed to the church, although we still received the income from an endowment fund of veterans from the Methodist Conference. $6 to $12 annually. Penny Richards was the treasurer for almost 20 years. And then Carol Sisling was the treasurer for a long time. The land under the building was given to the church with a stipulation common at that time that if the building was not used as a church, the land reverted to the original owner or heirs. That meant Charles Bennett, because it was given by Charles' grandfather, the land. The church had been moved from Sanderson neighborhood to this present location. Charles' grandfather, or great-grandfather, gave the land, which also included the center school land site. The church was vacant because children were being sent to Lovell for schooling. The Bennetts gave a quitclaim deed to the church and the town for the land immediately surrounding those buildings. The Lane Road, which is that impassable thing there, of course, is a discontinued town road and still owned by it. The remainder of the property, land down the lane, several acres down to the stone wall and the north wall abutting the Trevor's property, is owned by the church. There is enough land to build a parsonage or 2 or more houses in this acreage. When plumbing was put into the selectman's office, the old center school was insufficient land for a filter bed, and the church deeded another small piece of land to the town to take care of that filter bed. When we put the well for the school in 1950s, it too was on church property, and it was stipulated that the water was to be accessible, not only the school, but the church and the town hall. That hall. There was sufficient water for the school, but the water was salty because of the town stored winter salt and sand just south of the school. So that sand stuff has been at the house where we were the other day on Plummersville Road, and then south of it here, and then over on Hapwood Road. Now, there's, it also salted the Bennett Road down in the lower field. I think the system could be revitalized today. Perhaps the pump was faulty. The water is still available to the church and the town hall, and now the town office building. At the time of the deeding of the church land, the land under the town hall was deeded to the town. Charles and the Flints, each owning half, deeded it over. Eventually, we hired a full-time minister, charging him to preach some in the summer, along with other ministers, and to be responsible for pastoral care for the year round. He conducted Christmas and Easter services. Also, he called on folks in town, and we felt as an important part of the church's obligation. Our summer participants wholeheartedly supported the program. Ruth Bennett was the first clerk. Now, Ruth Bennett eventually married Pearson Harris, and that's how, is that correct, Kay? Yeah, she was married to Pearson Harris.
I remember meeting Ella Harris.
Ruth, we're talking about Ruth, her sister.
I don't know the answer to that because as far as I knew, Pearson Harris was always married to Ella.
No, he had a second wife, and it was this Ruth Bennett. Who was one of the members of the Bennett family that lived down where the sun walls in. During those years, we had evening services, relying on local ministers of surrounding towns who had morning services of their own. Reverend Monroe from Bridgeton served as our full-time minister for a number of years, also providing the pastoral care. Anyone in the town could call upon him for care. He performed weddings and funerals as well as christenings. We also made hospital visits. We paid a stipend, a meager one. We appreciated the minister's willingness to assist us. The men always worked hard on the building, repairing, fixing the bells. Roger Merrill installed the new lights and other fundraising projects. We borrowed chairs and tables from Freiburg Academy for large suppers until we raised enough money to get 10 large tables, those horrible things we have in the town hall right now, and 100 chairs to the town hall for church use. The women organized suppers as fundraising events. We carried water and helped clean up, washing dishes, etc. There were 50 members helping getting the church going, and frequently in our service, the pews were fully occupied. Rosemary Hollis, she was a retired school teacher, and she was Rosemary Smart Hollis. She owned a house which the fire department burned to cut it down, and deeded to the church 200 acres way back in the hinterlands. And that has been a godsend to the church. We live on the investments from that. And that's why to this day we can be generous in giving $2,000 to the food pantry, $2,000 to the historical society. Is that it?
And the fire department.
And the fire
for the
department.
new building.
Well, that's enough of me reading stuff. Among the charter members, down here, one of them is Granny Thomas. The others, I think, are pretty well gone.
No pressure.
Many of us came in as associate members because we were here summers. And as a church member, charter member, my brother David Paul and somebody named Jane Gibbons was also here.
What year was the church moved?
From Goshen?
Yeah.
I think it was 1919 or something. No, it was in the 1870s, and I'd have to look in the book. 1870, 71, 72, between 1870 and 1874. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you which exact year.
So it was done with oxen and logs, or?
They took it apart and put it back
Oh,
together,
they did? All right.
which I had forgotten that they had done that. But if everyone said they did, they did.
That did.
Well, because Charlie's parents would have been part, would have known that.
Well, in Dad's documentation, he cited 4 church buildings in Sweden at one time. Down at the corner of the big hill where the birches are and Weber Pond Road, somewhere in there, there was a Baptist church.
On the left-hand side.
The left-hand side, just before Weber Pond Road
Okay.
turns. And then the Congregational Church was on Weber Pond Road. The Methodist Church was up the hill, and now here, and the Unitarian Universalist Church was, services were held every Sunday in the town meeting house, and Colonel Nevers built the town meeting house and donated the land because, with the proviso, anybody, the town could use it except for Sunday mornings when it was reserved for a church service.
And there were 9 schoolhouses.
9
14.
schoolhouses.
14, I think.
14.
I have to look again.
Okay.
Jane, you talked about different things coming, and maybe I'm not right, but I thought that the pulpit, my father, when they renovated the church, Park Avenue Church in Arlington, that he brought that up here.
And the altar?
The altar, the chair, 2 chairs, and the pulpit came from your father's
Park
church.
Avenue Church. So if you ever go to Arlington, in Massachusetts, you'll see a very modern church, which is Mass Ave, and there. And so when they did in the 60s, all this new stuff, my father said, we'll take that. And so he brought all this and brought it all up here.
And the baptismal font came from something that Earl had, a Methodist church, from some Methodist church. And the flowers, I must acknowledge, come from the Historical Society, originally from Sue Farrington, Stan's daughter. I mean, Stan's daughter. It's 11:30, so I need to shut
So
up.
now we need